Welcome back to the deep dive, especially for all you students at LACC, Los Angeles City College, diving into Professor Segi's abnormal psychology class. You're hitting Module 3 now.
Yeah, module 3. So you've already looked at what's considered abnormal, the symptoms and stuff.
Right, we've got the definitions down.
Exactly. But now comes I guess the really meaty part, understanding why people struggle, the etiology, and figuring out how we actually help them.
Yeah.
The treatment side. It's fascinating, but it's work.
Totally. And our mission today is really to pull these two threads together, etiology and treatment. Because, look, if you're aiming for any career in this field, clinician, researcher, whatever,
Especially here in LA with all its complexity.
mastering this foundation, the why and the how, it's just non-negotiable. We're moving beyond those simple answers today.
Definitely. Into the real complexity of it all.
Okay, so let's tackle that first hurdle. The common explanation you always hear, right? Someone's depressed, anxious, and people just say, oh, it's a chemical imbalance.
Mm-hmm. That's the go-to, isn't it?
Yeah, but this module really pushes us to see, well, it's just too simple.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, biology is absolutely critical. We'll get into that. But those single cause explanations, they just don't cut it. They miss the systemic nature of these conditions.
Systemic, meaning everything's connected.
Exactly. That's why the module emphasizes multidimensional models of psychopathology. It's about this intricate web, biology, psychology, your social life, your environment. They're all constantly interacting, influencing each other.
Like a whole ecosystem inside and around us. Okay, so Professor Segi's module really highlights the biopsychosocial model, BPS. Why is that framework so important right now?
Well, BPS forces us to think holistically. It's right there in the name. Biopsychosocial. It integrates all those levels. It's a huge shift from the old medical model that, often just looked for the disease inside the person.
Right, ignoring the context.
BPS puts the person in their context,
Yeah.
their biology, their thoughts and feelings, and their social world, their culture.
Yeah. Okay, so within that bigger picture, the module gives us a couple of key concepts to understand vulnerability. Let's start with the diathesis stress model. Sounds kind of technical.
It does, but the idea is pretty straightforward and really useful. It basically separates vulnerability from the trigger. Diathesis is like a predisposition, an inherited vulnerability maybe for a disorder.
So something you're born with, potentially.
Potentially, yeah, or develop early on, but it often just lies dormant. It's there but not causing problems until it interacts with stress, significant life events, trauma, major pressures. That's the trigger.
Okay, let me make this real for LA. You're an LACC student, you're balancing classes, maybe a demanding job or two. You're dealing with LA traffic, maybe family stuff, trying to figure out your future. That's the stress part, piling up.
That's exactly it. That intense environmental stress crashes into whatever underlying vulnerability the diathesis might be there.
And that combo can lead to a disorder developing.
Precisely. Which leads us neatly into the next concept, the gene-environment correlation model, or RGE.
RGE. Okay, what's the twist here?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting, I think. The idea is that we don't just passively get our environments. Our genes actually influence the environments we choose or even create.
Wait, hang on. So if I have, say, a genetic leaning towards being really high-strung or sensation-seeking, I might subconsciously or consciously seek out really stressful jobs or intense relationships or move to a super competitive city like LA. I'm kind of picking my own stress.
You got it. Your genetic predispositions influence your behavior, your choices, and that shapes the environment you experience, which in turn can interact with that same predisposition. It's a feedback loop.
Wow. So you're not just dealt a hand, you're also kind of choosing the game.
In a way, yeah. You're selecting or generating environments that correlate with your genetic features.
Okay, so we've got these models, BPS, diathesis stress, RGE, showing how complex the causes are. Now let's drill down into that biological piece. What does the module say about our actual biological hardware?
Right. And the key thing the module stresses here is that no single biological factor is the whole story. Nothing works in isolation. These factors increase vulnerability, usually when interacting with psychological or social stuff.
Got it. So where do we start biologically? Neurons.
Yeah, got to start with the basics. Neuronal communication. How nerve cells talk to each other across that tiny gap, the synapse, using chemical messengers, neurotransmitters.
Well, like serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, those guys.
Exactly. And understanding that basic process action potential, release into the synapse, binding to receptors, is fundamental. Because that's where many biological treatments intervene.
Like SSRIs for depression.
Perfect example. SSRI, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. They work by basically increasing the amount of serotonin available in the synapse. They tweak that chemical communication to help regulate mood. Knowing the mechanism helps understand the treatment.
Okay, so neurotransmitters are key. But our stress response is bigger than just brain chemicals, right? The module talks about the nervous system and the endocrine system too.
Absolutely. You've got the nervous system for the quick reactions, fight, flight. But for ongoing stress, the kind many students experience,
Yeah, like chronic deadline pressure, financial worries.
we really need to look at the endocrine system, specifically the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal cortical axis, the HPA axis.
Okay, the HPA axis sounds important.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It's this pathway connecting your brain, the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, to your adrenal glands, which sit on your kidneys. It controls the release of stress hormones, mainly cortisol.
So if you're under constant pressure, like juggling LACC in life,
Your HPA axis can become chronically activated. You're constantly pumping out cortisol, and that sustained activation is linked to all sorts of problems: anxiety, depression, even physical health issues like burnout. It wears the system down.
that makes so much sense for student life pressures. Okay, so knowing this biology, how do we intervene biologically?
Well, the module outlines two main types of biological treatments. First, you have psychotropic medications.
The pills, antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds, etc.
Right. These are essential tools. They help manage or alleviate symptoms by influencing those neurotransmitter systems we talked about. But, crucial point, they usually manage symptoms. They don't often cure the underlying issue in isolation, and sometimes they're needed long-term for chronic conditions.
Okay. And what if meds and therapy aren't enough? The module mentions brain stimulation therapies.
Yeah, for severe treatment-resistant conditions, these can be options. Things like ECT, electroconvulsive therapy, and RTMS, which is repetitive transcranial magnetic stimulation.
ECT sounds intense.
It can be, and there's stigma around it, but for someone with profound, life-threatening depression who hasn't responded to anything else, ECT can be genuinely life-saving. RTMS is less invasive using magnetic pulses. They're important tools in the kit, though typically reserved for more severe cases.
Okay, so we have biological treatments managing the hardware, the chemistry, but what about the software? The patterns of thinking, feeling, behaving. That's where psychotherapy comes in, right?
Exactly. Medication might adjust the brain chemistry, but it doesn't necessarily teach you new coping skills or help you understand the roots of your patterns or change how you relate to others. That's the job of psychological therapies. And as a future clinician, you need to understand these different approaches, these different languages of therapy.
Let's dive into those languages. The module starts deep with psychodynamic approaches. Thinking Freud.
Yeah, Freud's the origin, but it's evolved a lot. The core focus is still on unconscious influences, how early life experiences, especially with family, shape who you are now, your relationships, your conflicts.
So digging into the past to understand the present.
Pretty much. And modern research actually supports core psychodynamic ideas like the existence of unconscious processes and things like ego defense mechanisms.
Defense mechanisms,
Mm.
like denial or projection.
Exactly. Repression, rationalization. These are ways our minds unconsciously protect us from difficult feelings or thoughts.
Hmm.
Understanding those can be really illuminating, especially, for young adults in LA, figuring out relationships, identity, seeing how your past patterns play out now.
Makes sense. Okay, then we shift gears completely with behavioral approaches. What's the focus here?
Behaviorism is all about the observable, which you do. The idea is that behaviors, including problematic ones, are learned through interaction with the environment. Classical conditioning, operant conditioning, observational learning.
Pavlov's dogs, Skinner's box, that kind of thing.
Those are the foundations, yeah. And if behaviors are learned, the thinking goes, they can be unlearned or modified.
So the treatments are very action-oriented.
Totally. Think exposure therapy for phobias, gradually facing the feared thing. Systematic desensitization, pairing relaxation with feared stimuli. And operant methods.
Like using rewards and consequences?
Exactly. Applied behavior analysis, or ABA, is a big one, often used with kids or developmental disorders. It uses clear reinforcement, maybe token economies, to shape behavior. Very structured, very focused on measurable change.
I can see how that applies day to day, too. Like if you always escape stressful homework by scrolling Instagram.
Classic negative reinforcement. The scrolling takes away the unpleasant feeling of stress, so you keep doing it.
Behavior therapy would target changing that learn-to-spate pattern.
Precisely. Modifying those environmental triggers and responses. Okay, so we've had the deep past and the observable present. What about internal experience, meaning potential?
That sounds like the humanistic approach. Carl Rogers.
You got it. Humanism was partly a reaction against the kind of deterministic views of psychodynamics and behaviorism. It emphasizes individual potential, self-awareness, free will.
And the therapy, client-centered therapy, is about.
It's about the therapist providing unconditional positive regard, total acceptance, empathy, and genuineness. The goal isn't to interpret or fix, but to help the client connect with their own inner resources, their true self, and move towards growth. Focus is on the present and future.
Aligning who you are with what you do.
Exactly. And then finally, we get to what's arguably the most dominant approach today, cognitive and cognitive behavioral therapies, CBT.
Okay, so what's the cognitive part?
Cognitive approaches focus on mental processes, how your thoughts, beliefs, interpretations, and assumptions influence your feelings and behaviors. It's not just the event, it's how you think about the event.
Like, if I bomb a quiz and think I'm a total failure and will flunk out, versus thinking, okay, that sucked, I need to study differently next time.
Perfect. The first thought leads to despair, the second to action. Cognitive therapy helps identify and challenge those unhelpful, often irrational thought patterns.
And CBT brings it together.
Right. Cognitive behavioral therapy integrates those cognitive restructuring techniques with behavioral strategies. So you work on changing the thoughts and changing the behaviors, developing better coping skills, managing emotions. It's very practical, very skill-focused, hugely relevant for stressed students dealing with academic pressure, anxiety.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like useful tools for the LACC reality.
So you learn about all these different schools, psychodynamic, behavioral, humanistic, cognitive. But when you actually get into clinical practice, what happens?
You probably don't stick rigidly to just one, right?
Not usually, no. Most therapists today are eclectic or integrative. They draw techniques from different models, depending on the client and the problem. It's about flexibility, having a bigger toolkit.
And sometimes you combine therapy with medication.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's combination therapy. Often, medication can help stabilize someone enough so they can engage more effectively in psychotherapy. They work well together for many conditions.
The module also talks about different settings for therapy.
Right, the modalities. Therapy isn't just one-on-one in an office. There's individual therapy, sure, but also group therapy, couples therapy, family therapy. Each requires different skills.
Family therapy sounds complex, like you're treating the whole system.
It is. You might use approaches like structural family therapy, looking at roles and boundaries, or strategic family therapy, focusing on changing specific interaction patterns. Psychoeducation for the family is often huge, too.
Okay, so lots of tools, lots of settings, but there's another layer the module really emphasizes, especially for us here in LA.
Ah, yes, the sociocultural perspective. This is absolutely crucial.
Tell us why.
Because you simply cannot understand or effectively treat a person without understanding their context. Their culture, ethnicity, socioeconomic background, gender identity, sexual orientation, all of it shapes their experience, including their experience of mental health and illness.
So therapy needs to be culturally sensitive.
Sensitive isn't even strong enough. It needs to be culturally competent. Therapists have an ethical obligation to understand their own biases, learn about their clients' cultural backgrounds, and adapt their methods accordingly. Using the right language, respecting values, understanding different views on family or help-seeking.
And the module points out this isn't just a nice to have, it's critical because of real-world barriers, right?
Exactly. The data shows, unfortunately, that people of color and folks from marginalized communities often use mental health services less. And it's not just about money. There are issues of stigma, lack of culturally matched therapists, language barriers, transportation, mistrust of the system.
So as future clinicians or professionals working in LA, a super diverse city,
You have to be equipped to recognize and actively work to overcome these barriers.
Mm.
Cultural competence isn't an add-on. It's fundamental to providing ethical, effective care. It brings that biopsychosocial model right into the community.
wow, that's a huge responsibility.
It is, but it's also where the work becomes incredibly meaningful. Hashtag tag outro.
Okay, that was a lot. We really covered the map in this module, didn't we?
Yeah.
From the HPA axis, deep in our biology, through genetic vulnerabilities.
All the way to the different languages of therapy, psychodynamic, behavioral, CBT, and wrapping up with the absolute necessity of cultural competence in how we apply everything.
Module 3 really lays down the bedrock, the engine room, like you said earlier, for understanding abnormal psychology.
It really does. So as you work through this material, try not just to, memorize terms. Actively connect the dots. Ask yourself, how might someone's diathesis show up in their behavior? How could CBT help them? Keeping their sociocultural background in mind, How might RGE have played a role?
Making those links is how you start thinking like a clinician.
It's exactly it.
Engage with it, wrestle with it.
All right, we want to leave you with a final thought to chew on as you dive deeper this week. The module emphasizes that psychological issues arise from the interaction of these complex, interdependent systems: biological, psychological, social.
So thinking systemically about your own life for a moment. What's one specific, maybe even small change you could explore within your own environment, your routines, your interactions, your study habits this week that might potentially enhance your own well-being? Just something to think about.
Yeah, apply it to yourself.
Yeah.
See how these concepts feel in real life.
Yeah.
Keep digging into the module material. It's challenging, but this is where the foundation for your future work is built.
Absolutely. We're excited for you as you continue this journey in Professor Segi's class. Keep up the great work and dive deep into Module 3.